Welcome. In the previous video, we compiled function definitions, and in this one, we were supposed to add some parameters to these function definitions. But I believe the best option we have now is to clean up some code for a few episodes. The first thing I want to do is to extract these token definitions into a separate file. So we can begin by creating the token.h file. And once again, we can add the boilerplate code. After that, we can cut some of the code from tokenizer.h into token.h. We can also extract the token structure as well as the token speak and token shift functions. Now we can include our token.h file in the tokenizer.h file. We should also be able to extract the location struct into a separate file. And the code for this file is actually going to be pretty simple. We are just going to have the location struct, two macros, and the location make function. Now we can include it in the tokenizer.h file, as well as the token.h file. We must not forget that the token.h file also needs to include string view. Now we can remove the implementation of these three functions from tokenizer.h and paste them in token.h. As you can see, our tokenizer.h file is now much cleaner. Now in the main.c file we can include token.h as well as the location library. If we run the code once again, nothing has changed. The last thing I want to do in this episode is to introduce this private function called tokens as kind prefix to then use it in a macro. The implementation of this private function is going to begin by checking if the tokens count that was provided is less than the prefix count. If that's the case, we must return false. Otherwise, we must check if the prefix kinds is equal to the tokens kinds. If we went through all of this loop and didn't find anything mismatching, then we can return true. Now we can wrap this function into a macro to make the call a bit easier. We can call it tokens as kind prefix that accepts some tokens and then a variable amount of kinds. This macro depends on this token kind array macro that we can just define it like this. And this macro depends on token kind array data and count macro, and we can define it like this. This macro is going to accept an array, give the array back, and then the amount of elements in this array. This macro is going to accept a variable amount of token kinds and then wrap them into an array. And in this macro is going to call the private function we have just created. With this new macro, we can start cleaning up some of the code in the parser.h file. For example, in the parse expression function, we can replace this condition by this call. And in the parse statement function, we can replace both of these ifs by a single one by using the tokens as kind prefix and checking if the prefix is an ID followed by a left parenthesis. Do not forget to now reformat the code. It should now look something like this. Inside the parser parse function definition, we can do a similar thing by replacing these two if conditions by a single one. We can once again reformat the code. And that's more or less everything we can do for now. In the next video, we are going to refactor the parser.h file.